Welcome, everyone. We're going to record this mindful eating for men, and real-time captions are available for this class. Please click the CC button on your Zoom window to toggle them on or off. These captions are automatically generated by Zoom and may contain some errors. We'll have time for your questions, so please type them in the chat or use the Q&A, and we'll also leave time for questions at the end of the presentation. Today, we're going to learn tips and tricks to help you become more aware of how your environment influences your eating habits. The session is not about what you eat, it's about how to eat. This class, Mindful Eating for Men, is in partnership with the Giant Food and Howard County Health Department. I want to introduce our presenter today, Melanie. She is a registered dietitian, licensed dietitian nutritionist, certified diabetes care and education specialist, certified specialist in obesity and weight management, and a certified personal trainer. Wow, we're so glad to have her here. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Dietetics from Eastern Michigan University and a Master of Science in Applied Nutrition from the University of New England. She believes in practical steps to improving health and wellness where no foods are off limits. On behalf of the Howard County Library System, welcome, Melanie, and thank you for sharing this series of educational webinars with our library community.
Oh, thank you so much. All right. Well, I'm glad to be here this morning. We were just talking earlier about how beautiful it is today. So hopefully you can enjoy the wonderful weather. But thank you for joining our presentation today. And again, I am Melanie Burdick, one of the registered dietitians at Giant Food. And I'll tell you a little bit more about our services towards the end of the presentation. But even though today's title of the presentation is Mindful Eating for Men, this is wonderful information for everyone. So hopefully after today, this will give you some ideas about some of your eating behaviors. And maybe there might be a few things that could inspire you to maybe change a couple of those. So we're going to walk through all of those today. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so for our agenda today, our presentation will be broken into 3 different parts too. So first off, we're really going to explore not so much what we eat, but why we eat, as Nancy said. And so the first part of the presentation, we're going to talk a little bit more about evidence-based information about mindful eating and really how this practice can improve your relationship with food. And we'll bring that up as we go throughout the presentation. And maybe that's something to think about right now. How would you define your relationship with food? It's a little bit different for everyone. And then we'll change gears and we'll talk about some wonderful things in the aisles that you can put into your cart to be a mindful eater, some things that are great for us, and then some things that are tasty as well. So we'll have the best of both worlds. And then finally, we'll finish up in the kitchen and we'll tie everything together for some tips, some eating strategies that you can use at home. All right, so this is fascinating. So as we enter into the office and talk about some evidence-based information, fascinating statistic. Now, the Cornell University Food and Brand Lab, in their studies, they have figured out that Americans make about 200 food decisions every single day. That's crazy. And just think about your day so far. What did you have for breakfast? You know, what did you put into your coffee? Maybe you're thinking about your mid-morning snack, or maybe you're thinking, all right, what's going to be for lunch today? So a lot of our day is surrounded by those food decisions. And then what they've also found is that 59 of those 200 decisions each day are specifically about the type of food you're going to eat. So you're going to have cereal. What type are you going to have? You're going to have a sandwich. Well, was it going to be turkey, ham, cheese? What's it going to be? And so when we look at all of these decisions, you know, one decision here, one decision there, doesn't seem like a whole lot. They're pretty minor overall. But when you think about making a lot of minor decisions that may not be the best decisions, it can add up pretty quickly. So as we go through today, we're going to talk about some of those decisions that we can make, how to make our healthy eating just a little bit better. So we've probably heard a lot about mindful eating over the last few years. It's really become a trending term. And let's get to the definition. So what exactly is mindful eating? Now, again, we might have heard it in the news or on social media. We might have our own definition. But actually, there is a definition in the Merriam-Webster dictionary for mindfulness. And really what this boils down to, it's the practice of maintaining a non-judgmental state of heightened or complete awareness of one's thoughts, emotions, or experiences on a moment-to-moment basis. So essentially, we're 100% in what we're doing, every task at hand. And so when we think about being a mindful eater, that's being aware of the entire eating experience, how the food affects you. When you're eating, think about, the level of presence that you have at that meal. Are you paying attention? Are you multitasking? Can you identify when you are full? Think about last Thanksgiving. So one thing that's really, really fascinating. So here we have this cute little baby on the screen. We're actually all born to be mindful eaters. It's something that's natural when we're young. And you think about, way back in the day, maybe your children or maybe your grandchildren, when they're sitting at the table, when they're full, they push the food away. And when they're hungry, they tell you that they want to eat. And so toddlers might stop eating maybe when they're halfway done. But at that time in our life, we have that regulation to say, I'm good. I don't need to eat anymore. Now, sometimes as we grow up, that level of awareness starts to kind of decrease a little bit because we can become more aware of everything going on in our life, our surroundings, and that can throw us off track a little bit. So when we think about mindful eating, so there are so many different benefits, and this is such a wonderful area, and it's highly researched. And what they know is that when people are present with their food choices, it really empowers them to make the choices that are in their best interest for their health. So when you're really thinking about those food, remember going back to those 200 food decisions, if you really focus on maybe improving your health or your weight or your blood pressure, you might think a little bit more about those different choices. And then we also know that when people are mindful, they actually report fewer feelings of that loss of control and also a decrease in cravings. I think we've all been at that point, maybe after a really long day, come home, we're hungry, we're stressed, and we might eat a little bit more than we realize too. So as we practice mindful eating, we're actually able to control our actions a little bit more. And also, when we think about being mindful, again, we're being present. And that actually guides you to choose foods that you enjoy and really skipping those that you're really not crazy about. And think about a past situation when you maybe were offered something and you took it because you didn't want to be rude, but you didn't really enjoy it. When we're mindful, we can say, you know what, I'm good. This isn't going to give me that joy or that benefit too. So very, very fascinating what mindful eating can do for us. All right, now let's go to the other side of things. The opposite of mindful eating is mindless eating. And so really this is when someone is not paying attention to the amount of food that they've eaten or their level of hunger or fullness cues. And so often when we think about mindless eating, it's typically when we're not physically hungry, so to speak. It might be, an event in your life or a stressor, or maybe other people are eating and you want to join in. And there's actually an interesting theory about this. It's called the self-determination theory. And really what it says that humans are motivated from within to behave in ways that support their overall well-being. So we have that drive to choose things that are good for us. But we have all of these outside or extrinsic factors that can really undermine our intrinsic motivation. So this means you might get sidetracked by some outside forces. So for instance, maybe somebody offers you some chocolate or is eating candy and offers you some as well. Maybe you smell something that someone's cooking and you know what, you kind of give into it. So really we want to think about, all the things that can really impact the way we eat and how we eat. So think about in the last couple of weeks, have you caught yourself being mindless when eating? I can think of a few times myself as a dietitian, and so it's something that is very, very common. But one thing that we also might experience when it comes to eating, we have this act of mindless eating where we overeat, but then we have the exact opposite, which is restrictive eating. And so let's talk a little bit about this as well, because we can often go from one extreme to the other when it comes to our eating practices. So first off, restrictive eating. It really restricts what we eat. And so many of us, we might have experienced this. Maybe it's counting points, carbohydrates, fat, grams of fat or protein. Maybe it's taking different food groups out of our diet. Maybe it's eating within a certain time frame. And there may be other factors that really impact, or limit the type of foods that you eat. And generally, sometimes what happens is that many people may have in the past maybe gone a little overboard with their eating, and maybe something stops them in their tracks, and they say to themselves, I need to change my eating habits. Think New Year's resolutions, right? So then we might go to the other extreme to help make up for some of that mindless eating. So we might take things away. And so when we think about this, when we have this restrictive eating, it's really not a healthy eating. It's just limiting how much we can have. And so we really want to think about, how do we get a balance between these type of eating styles where we can embrace the food that we choose, but don't feel like we're being bad, or we're going off our diet, so to speak. And I know many of us, we've been through this. We've tried diets, they worked for a little bit, and then we kind of went back to our old ways. So really, when we think about mindful eating, it's kind of that balance in the middle. So when we have restrictive eating, many people say, you know what, when I cut some of those things out of my diet, I lose weight. Typically, that happens when we're taking away calories from any type of food, we're going to have weight loss. But generally, what happens, again, going back to that restriction, maybe it's not sustainable. Maybe it's really hard to give up your favorite foods, or maybe you give up ice cream, but then, your family might be enjoying ice cream in the other room. And so it's really not joyful, and it's really hard to maintain long term. So then what happens? We move from that one extreme, we might get fed up, and we might go to that overeating or mindless eating routine, as you can see on the screen here. So we have these two ends of the spectrum. So when we think about mindful eating, it's that balance in the middle. And it's really being in tune with yourself rather than following restrictions, but not going overboard. So when we think about being mindful, you know what? Nothing is off limits. And you can see here that before we had our cute little baby that was a mindful eater. And then this baby has grown up and has the ability to still be a mindful eater later in life. And so when we think about our different practices, we can really get in control of our eating habits. And so, kind of going back to some of that mindless eating versus that restrictive eating, when we're more focused on our foods, we're less likely to cope with our emotions by eating or, responding to negative emotions. And we know when we're more focused, we're going to eat those healthier foods. Awesome. Perfect. All right. Thanks, Nancy, for putting that into the chat. Awesome. And you can be more confident about your food choices too. So again, it's finding that happy compromise. All right. So now that we've talked a little bit about some of the science when it comes to the different types of eating practices, let's talk about some of the foods that can help you be mindful while shopping. So keeping the mind in mind. Now, when we think about our food choices, often houses might have a nutritional gatekeeper. So think about your household. So we might have someone in the family that does all the grocery shopping, and maybe they plan the meals. So it could be yourself, it could be your spouse, it could be your child, it could be whoever it is. And this is the person that does most of that shopping, that food preparation. And what's really, really interesting, remember all of those intrinsic and extrinsic factors I mentioned? Nutritional gatekeepers in the house actually shape the food that gets eaten and actually can influence about 70% of the food choices in a household, which is fascinating. Think about back to your childhood or growing up. Who did the shopping? What type of food did you eat? What type of eating behaviors did you pick up? It's quite interesting. In my house, my mom did a lot of the grocery shopping, but my dad did most of the cooking. So it was a very interesting divide. And what's important, nutritional gatekeepers need to be aware of that importance of healthy eating and living. And so what we know is that if that nutritional gatekeeper, that person that makes those food decisions, struggles with unhealthy habits and eating choices, they're going to pass it along to the rest of the family. So that can be restrictive eating, that could be mindless eating. We can pick up on those different behaviors as well. Now, what's great is that any habits that nutritional gatekeeper learns, they can really help improve all the eating habits in the family as well. So that's the positive thing. And also I can say in my household growing up, early on, we may not have made the best choices, but as that nutritional gatekeeper, my mom learned about health and wellness. We started to make different food choices, buying healthier things in the store, and that truly did shape the entire family. And we moved away from some of those maybe less healthy choices. So it can make a difference, no matter where you are, whether your kids are young or old, or you're living with other family members. Any changes you make can really shape a family. Now, we want to make sure that when you're shopping, we want to have a list, because when we're organized, we're going to be less apt to picking up some frivolous purchases as well. So sticking to a list. And then we also know too that if you're doing that shopping, if you have something to eat beforehand, that can keep you focused and all those tempting foods a little less tempting if you're satisfied before going to the store. And then we also want to think about too, we want to have that balance. All foods fit when you go to the store. So you want to think about really filling up your cart with nutritious foods, fruits and vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins. And then you can leave a little bit of room in that cart for some products that you really enjoy. Maybe your treats of the week. It could be cookies or ice cream. And we can work that into our eating plan. We just want to make sure that we're filling up that cart with awesome nutrient-dense foods. Now, we actually have 2 programs at Giant that really can help guide people through the store, guide that nutritional gatekeeper, or anyone that might be doing the shopping in the household. And so we have a tagline for this. It's best for me and best for we. So let's talk about the program that's best for me. And that's our Guiding Stars program. And this is a nutritional rating program that reads the labels for you, so you don't have to. So healthier options are awarded with 1, 2, or 3 stars. And so these items, if they have more fiber, protein, whole grains, heart healthy fats, and less sodium or sugar, they're going to receive more stars. So remember, more stars, the healthier choice for me. And so this is something that you can pass along to that nutritional gatekeeper in your house. Tell them to look for the stars while they're shopping, and they'll see them right on that shelf tag below the price. You'll see that logo. You'll also see the Guiding Stars logo printed on Giant branded products. So just an easy tool for your shopping toolbox. Now, on the other side, we have a program that's best for we. And when we say we mean the planet. So we have our impact ratings powered by our wonderful friends at How Good. And unlike Guiding Stars, it does not provide nutrition ratings, but what it does, it talks about the environmental and social impact scores of different products and companies. And so products, they receive 1, 2, or 3 leaves, depending on their impact on the environment. And so as you're shopping, maybe looking for items that are better for the planet, or maybe you can support someone in your household that is really environmental. You can find more products with those leaves and put them into the cart. So you'll see these in the same location that you will as the guiding stars. You'll see it right on the shelf tag below the price. You can also download the How Good app, and you can search a variety of different foods and learn about their ratings. It's a really great tool. So I highly recommend these too. Now, other things that we want to think about when we're shopping and being mindful is looking at the nutrition facts label. And this is really the key when we think about that balanced eating pattern, being in that middle of that swinging pendulum. We want to make sure that all foods fit. So we could talk a lot about nutrition labels and one of my favorite topics, but let's just key in a couple of different areas that are really important when it comes to mindful eating. So as we have here, we have a nutrition label. Now, this one has 2 columns on it. So this package actually has 2 servings in it. And so what's been done by the FDA, they've actually made it easier for people to know how much they're consuming. So if you pick up a package, maybe it's trail mix or a bag of chips or cookies, that's maybe not a single serve, but maybe it's big enough and not too big that you can eat most of it in one sitting. Now the manufacturer has to list the information per serving of the product and for the entire package. So this item, you can see here, the serving size is 1 cup. So I can see the nutrition information. So it's 220 calories per cup. But I know if I eat this entire package, I'm going to eat 440 calories. So this can really bring, give you a better idea of what you're consuming. With the old nutrition facts labels from a few years ago, it didn't do the math for you. You had to do the math. So this is a great place to start. So when you're thinking about your food choices, really hone in on how much you are serving yourself. Many of us, it is easy to overeat. We think we eat less than we actually do. So when you're thinking about being mindful, check out how much you're serving yourself and compare it to that label on the package. Now, if you choose to eat this entire package, that's fine. You just want to make sure it fits within your personal wellness goals for the day. So quickly, as you go down the list, there are a lot of other things on that nutrition facts panel, all wonderful information. And so it may seem a little daunting at first if it's something that's new to you, but starting with the serving size is a great place. And then you can go down the list. Other areas that you want to watch out for, saturated fat. Saturated fat can really impact our heart health, can increase our LDL cholesterol level, also known as that bad cholesterol. So we want to make sure that we're taking a look at that. And then we also want to take a look at our sodium intake. We should have less than 2,300 milligrams a day. This item has 240 milligrams or 480 in the entire package. We also want to take a look at fiber. Fiber can keep us full. Most Americans aren't getting the fiber we need every day. It's about 25 grams. Many of us, we're falling far below that threshold. So increasing more fiber in your diet can really make a difference in your satiety levels between meals. And then also other things, added sugar. Now in the nutrition label, you can see what's natural in a product and what's been added. So you can see here that this item has 4 grams of added sugar, which is about a teaspoon per serving, along with 3 grams of naturally occurring sugar in the product for a total of 7 grams of sugar daily. So we want to make sure we're taking a look at that. And then lastly, other areas of concern at the bottom, you have that daily value for your vitamins and minerals. So calcium, vitamin D, now you can see the actual milligrams and micrograms in that product. So lots of wonderful information. Now, a couple things that you can do when you're looking at the nutrition label, take a look at that column on the right-hand side, that percent daily value. So what you can do if you're scanning labels, use the 5 and the 20% rule. So think about 5 as being low, 20% is high. So as we scan the list for fat, for sodium, we want to make sure that that daily value percentage is on that lower end because we want to make sure that we don't go overboard during the day. So if you look here, this item per serving has 10% of our daily value for saturated fat. But if I eat the whole package, it's 20%. So that's high. So if we see 20% or numbers that are closer to 20%, we might want to make an adjustment and find something a little less high in saturated fat. The same thing with sodium as well. We know that adds up quickly. So as you're scanning the labels, use that percentage rule, and that can really help guide you. We want to focus on getting more fiber. So we want to look for daily percentages that are higher towards that 20% rule. So that's a lot of information about the nutrition facts panel, but really the best thing you can do for mindful eating is take a look at that serving size and compare it to what you typically eat. All right. And so I'll just stop there. If there's any questions, you can throw it into the chat. If not, we'll cover them at the end of the presentation. Now, because, oh, I see something popped up here. Let's see. Oh, yes. This is a great question, Christy. So let's see. Sugar and dopamine. Yes. Yes. So this is a great insight. So that sugar dopamine connection and how it promotes overeating. Obesity rates increase when we saw those free refills. Yes. So if you've been to a restaurant, you know that they love to give you that refill of all those beverages, whether they're diet or regular. And so when we think about sugar, think about your favorite treat, chocolate, candy, M&Ms, you name it. It does give you that momentary feeling of satisfaction, escape. Oh, Peter. All right. Not Christy. All right. Thanks, Peter. So it gives you that momentary satisfaction, kind of in some ways is an escape for a lot of people. And so people remember that. So you get a lot more satisfaction from that chocolate bar than you do from those carrots. And so many people start to gravitate to a lot of those foods because you get that nice escape. And so, yes, it can impact how you feel and how that connection you have with food. And so what's really important is that we notice that relationship or that behavior that we're doing. So if we're getting upset and having chocolate and noticing that we feel better, then we might want to work on that as well. So yes, there is a connection. It's very fascinating. And of course, when you think about those refilled beverages, an 8-ounce glass of Coke has about 150 calories. So maybe it's a 16-ounce glass at that restaurant. That's 300 calories. And maybe you have 2 or 3 refills. That could be 900 calories. And so what's actually very interesting too, just as a side note about liquid calories, they don't register with your brain. So they don't tell your brain that you're full. You get that satisfaction, but you're not filling up. So if I go out to a restaurant and I have a few refills of my favorite beverage, maybe it's iced tea or sweet tea or lemonade, I'm still going to eat those calories on my plate as well because it doesn't trigger that satiety. So it's very interesting. So being aware of that and noticing those different trends, it's very important when it comes to your eating habits. Great question. So as the nutrition team at Giant, we love food. We love to talk about it. And so we always love to throw out some wonderful foods that we encourage our customers to put into their cart. They're tasty, yet they're wonderful, nutritious, and mindful choices as well. So here are just a few of many products. So when we're thinking about our health and wellness, and our eating, we want to make sure that we're getting fruits and vegetables. So here are just 2 wonderful options. We have the mini sweet peppers and the small halo oranges. So these are perfect for summer. You can use the peppers for grilling and you can use the halos as a quick little snack. And having something sweet, it's satisfying and it can really take away that need for chocolate or candy. Plus, you have to peel them, which takes a little bit longer and can slow you down. So those are just 2 wonderful choices you can look for in the produce section. Other things that we can add to our diet. Here we have things like yogurt. Yogurt is a wonderful protein, carbohydrate source. And when we add a little bit more protein to our day, it actually can keep us satisfied and prevent us from overeating throughout the day. So having a cup of yogurt or maybe mixing some fruit into your yogurt can give you that sweet satisfaction, but it sticks with you longer. Other things, one popular item that we use frequently, the rotisserie chickens, a wonderful source of lean protein. It makes meals quick and easy. You don't have to turn your oven on. And then other additions that you can add to your meals, nut butters, peanut butter, almond butter. These are great, very satisfying, but will also keep you full. And other things I mentioned, fiber earlier, things like beans and different whole grains like we have with the quinoa, a great way to increase that fiber intake for the day. And then lastly, we like to have that balance. Remember, all foods fit. So if something that you really love to do in your family is to maybe have a pancake breakfast, well, here's a great option, Kodiak cakes. These are made with whole grains and added protein. So they can keep you full, but you're still wonderfully satisfied and you can keep your morning weekend routine the same. So some wonderful things that you can look for in the produce, protein, and grain section at the store. And then, let's see here. We got a question. Let me see. Oh, good question. Oh, so that's liquid calories. Do they count if they have a smoothie versus eating fresh fruits and vegetables? So if you have a smoothie, so it has maybe some vegetables, some fruit in it, you're going to get that fiber and it's really going to be more satisfying. So those liquid calories, they can add up really fast, so those large smoothies. So you're still going to get satisfied, but sometimes we can overdo it with those calories. But at the same time, if you really struggle with getting your fruits and vegetables in, you can definitely make a smoothie with some spinach or some strawberries as a way to get you started into that routine. So definitely smoothies will count towards those food calories and have more of an impact on that satiety rather than, like, say, the soda. So absolutely. And also you just want to be mindful about how much you put into that smoothie. Is it a cup of berries, 2 cups of berries, milk, other goodies? Because those calories can add up really, really fast. That's a great question. Now, I mentioned earlier that all foods fit. And so there has to be some room for treats because let's be realistic, we all enjoy these. So here are some wonderful options that you can look for in the store. It's summertime, everyone's coming back together. So you may have some get-togethers. And so here are some things that you can put into your cart that are satisfying and perfect for summer. So here we have the Solero fruit bars that are low in sugar, and they have anywhere from 45 to about 120 calories. So it's a very tasty, refreshing treat without going overboard. Now, also too, many people love ice cream, but you can have the Enlightened or the Yasso bars is another brand where you get that perfect portion control, you get that chocolatey goodness without going overboard. So that's a great option if you're an ice cream lover. If you're going to a party, something crunchy, there are some wonderful options out there that are a little bit better for you. So we have Late July with quinoa and chia seeds for more fiber. And then for a little bit of sweetness, we have those sun chips with the brown sugar and sweet potatoes. Something fun, a little bit different. Again, just be mindful of that portion size. And then chocolate. All right, so if you're going to a barbecue, you can't go wrong with some sliced fruit and some dark chocolate hummus. So it's a great combination of that chocolatey goodness, but also you're getting a few more nutritious ingredients in that mix as well. And then lastly, if you're a chocolate fan, these are dark chocolate covered almonds, a nice crunch and that chocolatey goodness. And that way you can still enjoy your treat without going overboard. So just a few things that you can look for while you're in the store and kind of meet those treats that you like to have. Now, 2 things I do want to point out. Every month, the nutrition team, we have our hand-picked product of the month, and we actually have 2 this month. So for June, we're getting into that barbecue season. We're focused on the different types of red meats that actually have those guiding star ratings, so 1, 2, or 3 stars. So if you're thinking about doing some meal planning or some barbecuing, even just swapping out your typical 80% ground beef for something 90% lean or higher. It's a great meal and less fat at the same time. So some things that you can look for: London broil, flank steak, strip steak, or that 90% lean or higher ground beef are all great choices that have guiding stars as well too. And definitely, this is another great choice. You can still have a wonderful source of protein and iron for your diet. Still enjoy your barbecue, but a little bit healthier. And lastly, our other handpicked product of the month is LaCroix Sparkling Water, which we've been talking about liquid calories. This is a great option if you like that carbonation, but maybe something lower in calories. LaCroix is a great option because you get that carbonation without that calories and you get some wonderful flavor as well, too. So another great option for the summer. It's refreshing. It's a great way to stay hydrated as well. And you can even make a wonderful mocktail. Here we have some mint and strawberries with the limoncello variety. So some great things you can look for. I highly recommend checking their website for all their mocktail recipes. All right, so now that we've gone through some of the different evidence and also some of the things we can look for in the store, let's talk about how we can take that approach to eating more mindfully at home. And so one thing we want to think about when we're putting together our meals, we want to remember going back to those 200 decisions, think about the balance of our meals. And a great way to do that is using the USDA MyPlate. So this is a wonderful reminder of balanced eating. And it really helps you make sure that you're eating a variety of foods from all the different food groups. So half plate fruits and vegetables, a quarter grain, ideally whole, and then a quarter lean protein. So think about the MyPlate at your next meal. Are you getting all those food groups? If not, see if you can make an adjustment to make sure you're getting everything you need. All right, so here are some wonderful things that we can think about, some external factors when we're practicing mindfulness at home. We know the benefits, so now we just need to bring it into practice. And so one thing we want to think about is when we're eating, we are very visual eaters. And we know when we're done eating, when our plate is empty, there's nothing left. So one thing that's really interesting is that unless we can see what we're eating, we can easily overeat. So think buffets, think about any party, we can easily forget how much we're eating. And so we know that the way that you serve yourself at home can make a big difference. So one study found that individuals that actually pre-plate their food at the stove or in the kitchen, bring it to the dinner table, actually eat 14% less than somebody that maybe was sitting in front of the food at the dinner table as well, kind of eating family style. So definitely think about how you plate your meals. And also, what's very interesting as well, if you're at a get together or at a restaurant where they're bringing you all those refills, keep the glasses on the table. Reminding yourself, oh, I've already had 2 refills because I have 2 glasses on my table, tells you and it helps you keep in mind how much you're consuming. Because remember, if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. So try to keep those extra plates or glasses on the table if you have enough room. It can really make a difference for how much you consume at your meal. Other things that we want to think about too, the size and the shape of your glasses, the type of utensils you're using, and your plates. So one thing that can be really helpful and kind of trick the brain a little bit is to stock your kitchen with tall, skinny glasses and smaller plates. So when we think about food, people rely on the size or the volume of the food to tell us when we're full. So if we have tall, narrow glasses, that gives us that feeling of having more because of the height. And if we fill up a smaller plate, we feel like we're getting more, but we're actually eating less than if we were eating from a large plate. Very interesting as well. And lastly, too, we also want to make it really hard to be mindless. Now, many of us, we've been out of the office setting for a while. We might be going back or in that transition. We want to make sure that we don't make it too easy to be mindless. And one situation can be in that office setting where we might have a candy dish or a candy drawer or something sitting on a counter. So if you have anything that's in sight that can be really tempting, whether it's in the office or at home, remember, out of sight, out of mind. Put it in a drawer, in a cabinet, or move it farther away from you, and you're going to be less inclined to do some of that nibbling throughout the day. So think about that office setting or your home setting. And then lastly, think about technology, smartphone, computer, tablet. How are you eating? Are you sitting in front of technology? Are you disconnecting? Really sitting down and focusing on your meal rather than being distraction can really make a difference in your level of mindful eating. Now, other things that we can do, so really thinking about those external factors, those internal factors are really important as well. So when we're thinking about our health, many of us, we can eat really, really quickly and may not even realize what we've eaten and go back for seconds or have something else and then feel really, really full about 30 minutes later. We know if we slow down the pace of our eating, we're going to know when we're starting to get full. We're going to notice that sensation. It takes your brain and your gut about 20 to 30 minutes to fully connect and your brain to say, oh yeah, I'm full. I've had enough. So we want to make sure that we slow down the pace of eating. So maybe time yourself the next time you're at a meal. How quickly do you eat? Can you stretch it a little bit longer? And you might notice some differences in how you feel during that meal. One other thing to keep in mind is that the banquet's in the first bite. So we know that the first bite is going to taste the best. And all those other bites are going to have less satisfaction as we go. So really savoring that first bite, taking it in, eating slowly can really make you appreciate that, and you'll actually eat less overall. And then we also want to think about, as we're eating at a slower pace, that we're using our senses. Look, listen, smell, touch, and taste. Really think about your food. What kind of aroma does it have? If I eat slower, can I taste those spices? Maybe there's something in here I didn't notice when I was eating quickly. My visual, I know when I'm full. If I'm eating slower, my plate might still have food on it, but I'm recognizing that I'm getting full. So rather than relying on empty plate or full, think about your gut. So slowing down. And another thing that we can do when it comes to your hunger level is identify physical versus emotional hunger. And this is what's driving us to eat. Where's it coming from? So we all know physical hunger. So that usually is below the neck, kind of happens several hours after a meal, and then it goes away when you're satisfied. You're content, you go about your day. But we have emotional hunger. This is usually that head hunger. And it's really not related to time. It's not 5 o'clock dinner time. It could be midnight. It could be 2 a.m. It could be 8 p.m. And it really persists even when we're full. And many people feel shamed or guilty after eating because then they kind of realize that they weren't hungry. It was something else that was driving them to eat. So what's really important is that you slow down and sort of have a moment with yourself when you feel like you want to eat. Listen to your body and ask yourself, am I truly hungry? And a great way you can do this is using the hunger scale. So a scale from 1 to 10. So a 1 would mean you're starving, you're absolutely ravenous, versus a 10 is that you're so full you feel sick. We know these are two extremes that we want to stay away from. So we want to make sure that we're falling in the middle. So a 5 would be satisfied, we're not hungry, we're not full. And so we want to figure out where on the hunger scale, what's that number that's going to say it's time to eat? And what's that number that tells you that you are full? And so you can use this as a guide. You might say, 6 o'clock, it's dinner time, but I'm still kind of full from my snack earlier today. And say, where am I at? Maybe I'll wait a little bit longer rather than just eating because it's that time to eat. And this can really make a difference. If we just stop and recognize our behaviors, this can make a huge difference in our health. And one other thing that we can do when we're thinking about our mindfulness and being aware of the foods that we're eating is to cook at home. And now we've had a taste of this over the last year. When we cook at home, we have control. We have control of the ingredients, how we cook it, how it's prepared, and we can plate our food. So think about those portion sizes at other restaurants. They can be very large. So we have power to plate our food the way we need it. We can make it balanced using MyPlate. And we can also try new foods and new recipes too. And so a great resource you can use is our Giant Food Savory magazine. You can look for things that seem exciting and tasty and experience new things. And this is all part of being mindful. You're really present, choosing the foods that you're going to enjoy. And it's okay if you don't like it. If you say, you know what, this didn't do it for me, That's okay. That's all about being mindful. You can choose to eat or pass on some of the food options. And the more you try, the more you know. And lastly, before we finish up today, when we think about our eating patterns, and this goes for everyone, we are all human. We grow up with so many different behaviors and thoughts and ideas about food that sometimes relearning the practice can take a little bit of time. So being mindful, slowing down, recognizing your behavior, it won't happen overnight. So give yourself some grace and maybe focus on one behavior that you've noticed in yourself. Maybe it's sitting at the computer while you're working during the workday, and maybe you take your snacks to the kitchen table instead of in front of your computer. So think about, one or two things that you can do to be more mindful. And then we also want to make sure that we know the triggers. All of us, there are things that can be really difficult. So it could be people that maybe skip lunch and because they're too busy, but then they tend to overeat later in the day. Or other triggers, maybe it's stress. Maybe someone calls you to vent about their day and stress can trigger you to eat. So really be aware and try to find ways to minimize those triggers that drive you to eat. And again, those 200 food decisions, that's a lot. If we can change one or two of them a day, it's going to add up and it's really going to help change your relationship and your whole thought process around food. All right. And lastly, before we get to some questions, at Giant, we have our nutrition team, our healthy living team. And we can find all of our services at giantfood.com/nutrition. All of our services are free. So if you have questions about mindful eating or maybe your relationship with food, you can reach out to us on our website. Talk to a nutritionist over the phone or virtually over Zoom, and we can help guide you. We also have classes on our website as well over many, many different topics: meal planning, eating for health, things about sustainable eating, and even eating for diabetes or heart health. So we have something for everyone. And then we also have a wonderful platform on Facebook. We have our Healthy Living by Giant Facebook group. It's a great way to get to know our team, learn tips about healthy eating, new products and recipes, and really get that inspiration and motivation to help with your wellness goals. So I encourage everyone to join. And then lastly, we have our Nutrition Made Easy podcast right on our website. You can also listen on your favorite podcast app. 30-minute episodes, wonderful information. We have several on mindful eating, and it really helps you think about your relationship with food and a few things that you could do to make a difference. So I highly recommend those episodes. And there's also a variety of other options available, both for health and then for the foodies, things like trying new products in store. So there's lots of wonderful information online. All right, and last up before we get to our questions, really some things I'd like you to take away today. Really think about your relationship with food. Listen to the cues while you're eating. Think about that hunger level. Where are you on that hunger scale? And definitely check out our podcast app that I mentioned earlier, all on mindfulness. So, all right. Well, I appreciate everyone coming out today and taking the time. And I'm going to open it up if anyone has any questions.
Hi, Melanie. I want to thank you for a wonderful presentation. That was really nutrition made easy. You gave us a lot of great tools that we can put into practice for mindful eating. So thank you so much. I'm going to drop some of the upcoming classes in the chat. And if you have any questions, you can raise your hand or unmute yourself and we'll unmute you, or you can type them in the chat. But what a wonderful, wonderful presentation.
Oh, thank you. And I'm going to put in my email address too. So if anyone has any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer anything. And it looks like you have a lot of wonderful things coming up as well. So lots of good resources.
Okay, great. So thank you so much for everybody. Enjoy that beautiful day out there. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording, but we will stick around for another minute or two if you have a question.